What's up, guys? For today's build, we've got the HallowFire Spector. This is going to be a build that's going to allow you to basically spam all your abilities, and it almost gives me that feeling of what Sunspots used to be like, minus the weapon damage buff. But getting right into it, we've got Soul Invictus. We're going to be using this primarily to increase our ability regen faster, and also it's nice for that little bit of restoration on command, basically. And then we're going to be using Roaring Flames just to increase the damage of our abilities, since we're always going to be able to use them for the most part. And also, on the off chance that we don't have our melee, which is very rarely, we still will be able to take advantage of a couple of mods and scorching targets to create more sunspots. For the grenade, you can run whatever you want, but I'd recommend Firebolt because once you get Roaring Flames times 3, it's very powerful, the cooldown is very low, and it's just a really solid grenade. For the melee, we're going to be using Hammer Strike so that you can take out multiple enemies very easily and get Roaring Flames times 3 basically off of one quick movement. And also, it's just a really strong ability once you have that Roaring Flames times 3. Jump can be whatever you want. For your barricade, I'd recommend running Rally Barricade for that shorter cooldown, so that we can take advantage of a mod I will show in just a minute. And with this build, we're going to be using HallowFire Heart, if it wasn't already implied with the build name. But because we're not going to be using our super very often, I'd recommend running Burning Maul so that you have a shorter super cooldown. As far as the fragments go, I'm going to recommend Ember of Torches, Ember of Solace, so that your melee will give you Radiant and last much longer. And then Ember of Searing, so that whenever you defeat a Scorch target, you will get extra melee energy and that bump in recovery. And then finally, Ember of Empyrean, so that your solar weapon or ability final blows will extend the duration of restoration and radiant, which is very nice. Jumping over to the mods, on the helmet, we're going to be running a solar elemental affinity so that we can take advantage of explosive wellmaker and ashes to assets. Then we'll also be using harmonic siphon, since all of our weapons will be solar for the most part, except for our kinetic slot, but we are able to still take advantage of explosive wellmaker with it. On the gauntlets, it does, or never mind, we want to run arc elemental affinity so that we can take advantage of momentum transfer, so that that grenade that we're always going to be throwing out will reduce our melee cooldown, which is slightly longer. And then we're going to be running melee wellmaker for the combat mod. The exotic is going to be HallowFire Heart, as I mentioned earlier, and it does not matter what elemental affinity you run, but make sure you're running melee wellmaker. And then I personally like to run Concussive Dampener and Armor of the Dying Star just for that extra little damage resist. On our legs, we're going to be running a Stasis Elemental Affinity with Elemental Ordnance and Orbs of Restoration. So Orbs of Restoration won't really matter once we get our super, but until we get our super, it's going to help us with a little bit of extra ability energy for our grenade and melee. And finally, on the mark, we're going to be running a solar elemental affinity so that we can take advantage of bountiful wells, which is what allows us to stack those multiple melee well makers together, and also gives us extra wells so that we get extra ability energy from so many wells that we're going to be creating. And then, just for a little bit of added survivability for this build, I like to throw in Classy Restoration. That way, whenever you pop your barricade, you get Classy Restoration, and with Ember of Empyrean, you basically always have Restoration times 2, which is insane. And then I threw Bomber in there just because, you know, reduction of your grenade is a nice thing. But if you want a little bit more versatility in this build, I'd say run Molten Overload so that you can take on Overload champions easier. So, the kinetic slot, particularly, it does not matter what kind of grenade launcher you are running, but I would recommend running one so that you can take advantage of Explosive Wellmaker. But this is the main weapon you need for this build. Doesn't matter what the first perk is, but you want one with Incandescent, a Callus mini tool, so that way whenever you defeat a target, it will spread Scorch. When you defeat those targets, spawns a Sunspot, increases your ability regen. But also, this is a really nice perk, is to Excess. Final blows with this weapon while your super is full, which is going to be almost always, so that you can take advantage of HallowFire Heart. You're going to get a bonus to your strength and discipline for a moderate duration. So that's going to increase your grenade and melee charges even faster. For your heavy, you can run Parasite as a just big DPS chunk for whenever you encounter a boss or something. Or if you don't really want to be worrying about that, you can always run Gjallarhorn. Both of them will work for explosive melee or explosive Wellmaker. And just both of them are really solid options, but I like to have a little bit of variety in these builds. As far as your stats, basically just spec into your melee and your grenade. Your recovery doesn't really matter that much, considering that you'll have restoration ×2. But I would recommend speccing into your resilience just so that you have more damage resist and that barricade so that you can have classy restoration whenever you want on demand, basically. Real quick glance for the Destiny. I ran photo finish on all of the armor pieces, the Vulcan's Heart for HallowFire Heart, and then I'm not even going to try and pronounce that properly, the Epilos following helmet, the season pass ornament for the helmet, Solstice Gauntlets Magnificent for the armor, or for the gauntlets, Solstice Greaves for the boots, and the Radiant Breaker mark for the Titan mark. So, real quick, just demonstration of this build. You can run right in there, do a quick shoulder charge, already have half my melee back, half my grenade back. You basically will always be able to just keep using your abilities with this build. I completely just was trash there, but I can make it up by just doing that. And there I have my abilities once again. So you're basically going to be able to use this in any content, in my opinion. It's very powerful. Get that restoration ×2, and you can always have it as long as you're slaying out. So that is the HallowFire Spector. I hope you enjoy. If you like the build, please leave a comment. Let me know what you think of it. And until next time, I will see you later.